Welcome guys to another episode of Boom Arena. Today we're gonna be covering the decks that finished in the recent season as a top 10 players, and today we're gonna be covering Dappers, Mortar Digger, I won't say even it's Psycho, more of a control deck, but however it's gonna be a very solid deck with introduction of Mortar and a cannon wheel, which is very rarely seen today, but in this deck it works fabulously. So without further ado, I'm gonna just show you guys how this deck works, and in the meantime I'm gonna just explain the general plans of this deck. Alright, so we are against a zero medal player, and I think that's the best way to explain, that's the best field to explain how the deck works. So he's gonna be playing Dark Knight, and it's gonna be even better because against a Dark Knight you kinda want to play in the same way as a every deck, because well, while the Dark Knight is kinda a tricky card to play against, its archetype is actually very predictable because players will usually try to overwhelm you anyway, so that's a very good thing to know right off the bat. And he's gonna be also playing some other cards like Cemetery, Bomberman, so we get a huge information right now, and I think that's a good moment to just stop and focus on our plan. Our plan obviously will be getting the digger damage through the entire game, and that's gonna be our primary win condition. Our secondary win condition will be Mortar, and with the Mortar we will be trying to get some usually to take some responses out of our opponent, sometimes to make his cycle uncomfortable, sometimes to just get some damage if our digger fails to do so. And it's gonna be generally our game plan. I'm gonna try to sneak this digger in front, and I'm gonna be successful at that. However, he's gonna be having a skeleton horde, which is gonna be a very good choice against my deck because I don't have blitz. Like, Skeleton Horde isn't a good card because once it gets predicted, you pretty much lose the game instantly. But in single mana it can be very good because if you have Skeleton Horde, you pretty much cannot be punished by any all-in. Alright, so too much talking about his deck. Right now I'm gonna talk about my deck, and right now I've just played Mortar to force out some response. He had to play Helicopter on this Mortar and didn't get the job done, so I think we can call it as a success. Unfortunately I missed the poison here, so I'll have to play a Rolling Steel as an extra at that. Right now he's gonna be going with a Super 8, recognizing my lack of a Mortar on hand, but I'm gonna be playing Swordman and Shield Skeletons, and they will deal with it just fine. He's yet to play a Dark Knight right now. I'm gonna be playing Poison because obviously this deck is pretty much about getting these small damages, and eventually they will stack up to some bigger advantage, like you see right now. I just have a tower and my opponent don't, because I kinda outtrade him. Like, it's not the thing that I try to brag, it's just that mechanically my deck was better suited for this matchup. Another thing that this deck is very good at is it doesn't have like very cheap cards, so you pretty much can expect to get value out of any of your card, and you don't have to aggressively cycle to some better cards or use some cards as a decoy. So for instance, okay, that was a bomber. I think we win already because he just misplayed this freeze. Anyway, I was about to talk about well, how every card in this deck can pretty much guarantee you a huge value. So obviously that's the case with every good deck. Like, you can obviously get a good value with skeletons, but shield skeletons are the replacement for skeletons in this instance, and the way they work is just they are kinda spell resistant, so your opponent cannot predict them, and that's a very good thing for ladder, because if you cannot get predicted, you won't get some random losses, and without random losses you're gonna be probably more solid and gain more medals over time. So that was probably they thought about this deck. Also, like, okay, he's gonna be playing Necromancer. This deck doesn't make any sense, but I don't expect anything out of my opponent, just trying to explain how my deck works. And while it's good to think about what your opponent wants, usually against these zero metal players, I'm gonna repeat that once again, it's good to just execute your plan, and if you're gonna execute your plan and be successful at it, you will win most of the games against zero metal players, so I'm gonna just play that. I'm gonna play a Mortar in a second. He used a Blitz, which is already bad move, but I'm commentating too much on the game, so okay, he's gonna be playing Piercing Archer. Even this Piercing Archer can be improved, because from this position you can snipe both Mortar and the tower, and it would have been way better thing to do than the thing that he did. Those are the things that you have to look out if you're playing a better player though, so I won't be having to focus too much against my opponent, but usually against a better... Okay, here come the mistakes after some bragging. Right, Cannon Wheel. So we're gonna actually talk about some standouts. So obviously Cannon Wheel isn't the standard choice in this type of deck. In fact, Cannon Wheel isn't the standard choice at all in any deck. And that's why I think it's very interesting to see in this deck, because Cannon Wheel actually has a very uncanny synergy with Mortar. Both these are buildings or can turn into a buildings and are very good defensively, but at the same time you don't want any of them to lock onto the offense, and they both pose a very to stall but very costly if committed a threat. So I'm gonna be playing Cannon Wheel right now to just defend, and it looks like I'm gonna be actually failing to defend both of these cards. I probably would have been a better off just by waiting, but it doesn't even matter. Cannon Wheel actually can either win you games or lose games. So it can win you games in very obvious ways if your opponent just fails to realize it's on his tower. That's the very standard way to win many games, especially because Cannon Wheel has a very tricky range, and it's very hard to estimate if it's gonna lock onto your tower or not. If you're trying to play greedily, you usually want to just get it as close as possible for the tower to engage, but not as close that it can just spawn the second time as a building and lock onto your tower. Another thing is a Mortar, which is actually not a very popular choice, but it's a very annoying one. That's why I like to play it. He's gonna actually get a very good choice of eliminating my Cannon Wheel, and right now he's gonna just take this lock into his face. So I'm gonna get 2 shots, I believe. There we go. And he's gonna be trying to break this position. That's why Mortar is very annoying, because it requires very alternative playstyle compared to like other win conditions. So against machine gun you probably just want to attack it straight away, and if it doesn't work you just want to kite and play some spells on it. That's very obvious how to play against machine gun, but against Mortar you kind of always want to distract, because you don't want this Mortar to connect onto your tower. Right now I'm gonna just... okay, that's gonna be in range. Fortunately, I was fearing that it's not gonna be in range, and I'm gonna get a very clean lock, which obviously is good. I'm gonna get all of that. Okay, he's gonna get a 5th though, which will render my Mortar useless. And he's gonna play another Viking. In this matchup, actually, I've picked a very good strategy from the get-go, just attacking the bridge, because even though I'm up against bridge spam, he has very little to no responses to my Mortar, which is like by the looks of the current situation, getting a lot of value. I'm gonna even get a Cannon Wheel as a building, which will pretty much get rid of these twins instantly. I'm gonna block these bridge spamming units, and I'm gonna get a Mortar to lock on. Right now I'm gonna just play Digger. He's gonna play a spell against my Mortar, which is well, not usually very good. Like I've said, if you can get away with playing troops over spells or building, you will be probably way better off with that decision. But I'm gonna just take any advantage that position will grant me. I'm gonna right now just cycle some poison, and it's not a good plan in a single mana, but in double mana, and especially when there are only 10 seconds remaining, is the best way to just secure yourself in very comfort position. And we're gonna just win by a very huge margin, and in the meantime I probably have done a good job of showing at least how this deck is supposed to be played. And that's gonna be wrap around for this episode. We're gonna be covering this very interesting Mortar Digger deck, and hopefully I've shown enough gameplay so you can understand this deck by yourself and try to pick it up at some point. It's not the easiest deck to play. Obviously it has some flaws, like it's one of these decks which have a very hard time to come back to the game, which is not pretty much beginner friendly, but when you are a better player, you'll just learn how to play with some damage advantages, disadvantages, so on and so forth. So it's more of a advanced deck, which I recommend for you to pick up if you want to get better at the game, because there are so many things that you can learn by playing this deck. And I think that's gonna be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to see more Boom Arena content, and I'm gonna obviously see you guys in the next episode of Boom Arena.